In this two-part series, I'm going to show you 4 key requirements for building reliable AI agents. In part 1, we're going to focus on the API and availability. We're going to use Postman and Agent Mode to do that and add important requirements such as key contracts, unit tests, documentation, and more to ensure that your agents perform as designed. Then in part 2, we're going to focus on building the AI agent itself. We're going to leverage those APIs that we just built, and we're going to overlay best practices for creating consistent responses from your prompts, using observability frameworks to check and ensure that token usage is as expected, and keep an eye on performance. Pulling all of those 4 things together give you those key requirements for building reliable agents. Now it's time to jump in and start building. The first thing I need to do is start to pull all of these things together. And because I am relying on so many different parts and different services, I want to make sure that everything is reliable. Once I push things into production, it should continue to operate the way it works. Now, this is one of the tricky areas that I'm seeing very often with AI agents is the notion of reliability. As you start to build these agents and they require interactions with other services, how do you take advantage of everything that is there and make sure that it is reliable and continues to operate the way that you designed it? Now, when I think about building reliable agents, I think of 4 areas. First is creating a clean contract between the APIs and services. Second is I want to make sure that those APIs and services are available. I want to make sure that it is available, and if something does change, I know about it and I handle that. Next, I want to make sure that my responses are consistent. Now, the very last thing that I look at is observability. I want to know what the agent is doing, how long it's taking, and most importantly, is the context efficient? Is it burning through tokens, or do I need to look at ways to improve my app and my process? Let's start inside Postman. As I said, I'm going to start to wire together a number of APIs to build my agent. The first one that I have is a pretty simple get coding resources here. I can hit my send with inside here. I've already added it and see my responses coming back. Now that I've had it already wired inside of Postman, I want to make sure that that contract is clean. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be aggregating quite a few different APIs and services. So what I can do is I can take advantage of agent mode and say, create an API spec for this collection. Right now, there is only one API endpoint in here, but I can regenerate this spec every single time as I create it. Okay, agent mode with a single prompt has gone and created an OpenAPI spec for me to take advantage of this. Now that I've got my spec up and going, a few other things that I want to start to look at. In particular, if I have more than one person on my team and I start to collaborate, I want them to know what this API and service does as well. Oftentimes, third-party providers won't provide sufficient documentations, or maybe that I'm writing my own API and I want to share that and make it discoverable with inside my organization. Documentation is a good place to start. As a developer, sometimes I don't spend the appropriate time to build that, but with agent mode, all I have to do is add a prompt and say add documentation. Give it a moment, it will go off and create the docs for me. Now that's already finished. I can go right to my collection, see all of the documentation that's been created. I didn't have to do a single thing, but add a prompt. Now this is great. I've got my documentation. I have my specs. I want to make sure things continue to work correctly. Now, often I've seen people when they're building agents, they'll start to add tests inside agents. But if your APIs go down, how do you know about it? How do you manage it? Not a problem inside Postman as well. I can very quickly say, create tests for this endpoint. I already have 2 tests inside here, but I want the agent to create a few more for me. Let me approve the changes. And in a few seconds, you can see it's gone and added a number of tests already. So it looks like one of my tests failed. Let's see if we can get agent mode to fix it. Have a look at the failed test. And ensure it passes. Okay, I've gone ahead and added agent mode to make sure that it was fixing this regex. That was the problem previously. And it's gone and already approved it, ran it again. Everything passes successfully. Now I have all my tests correct. I want to make sure when I start to push things into production, I know that everything is working. The best way to do that is add some monitoring. Okay, I've worked on making sure my contract is clean. I have documentation, I have an API spec, and I've started to lean into the second area of reliability that I like to focus on, which is availability. You've seen that with the test cases. I know if I run them, everything works correctly. I also want to make sure that when things are running, they are performant. Is there bottlenecks? Are there errors coming through? And a great way to do that is insights and monitoring with inside Postman. I'm going to jump back to agent mode here and say, create monitoring for this endpoint. And at this point, it's created the first monitor for me. I have to go and run it. And you'll see here, not the most exciting report, but you can see the prompt that I ran before and the execution. So I know things are working and everything is going correctly. I can filter by types of executions, the run results, failures, errors. And as my server starts running and continues to run, I'll see more and more insights coming inside here. So everything is looking pretty good at this stage. So with a single prompt, I've added monitoring. So when my app goes into production, I can very quickly come in here, diagnose, say, performance issues, make sure that there's any errors or failures, and most importantly, make sure my application and my API endpoints stay healthy. Now, we're not quite done with availability. I have my monitoring up, but if you notice here, agent mode is starting to prompt me proactively for the next things that I want to do. So I could add more endpoints to the monitoring. For example, I'm working on another integration here, which is API testing. So let's go and add that one. Say, yes, please add the intro to writing test cases collection to the monitor. Here we go. Let's run this guy. Now we also have another one in here, and this is a great example of why you create monitors. A number of these are actually failing. So I'll need to go back and work on these at another time, but already the idea is starting to make a lot of sense in terms of how I start to manage it. I want to make sure everything I'm working on stays healthy. So let's have another agent mode prompt here and say, please add alerts for any errors that occur. Once I learn to spell. So it's automatically gone here and added alerts as required. I didn't have to do a single thing, but add a prompt. So at that point, everything is looking pretty good. All right, we've added some API testing, some monitoring, some alerts, and our API spec to our agent. I think it's all pretty good from an API perspective. We want to take advantage of this API and the reliability that's built in there from Postman, and we want to create an MCP server that I can add to my agent. Guess what? I can jump straight back to agent mode and say, create an MCP server from this collection. Now, agent mode will go do its thing to create an MCP server, and each one of the methods within inside this collection will become a tool within inside the MCP server. Right now, there is this single tool inside here. It's gone ahead and created everything for me to export a package onto my local machine and run it using npx. I can go and have a look at the MCP server that's been created here. I can click on it and I can see the tools that are created. Get coding resources, in this instance, match to my HTTP method. All I need to do is download this, configure it inside my tool of choice. In this instance, I'm going to use Klein, and then we can start to add agent observability and reliability on that side of the equation. That's a wrap for part one. We used Postman and agent mode to add API specs and a clean contract. We added unit tests, documentation, insights, and monitoring, all with a few prompts. Now that we're done, I have confidence that my APIs will perform as designed. See you in the next one.